And in spite of the drizzle, it is a beautiful day. Let me thank you, Jeff, and let me wish you a bountiful, flower-scented May Day, a genuinely Scottish, bright and blessed Beltane. Beltane is the Celtic fire festival that sort of celebrates the transition from winter to summer, and my family celebrates it every year along with the other 7 pagan Wheel of the Year celebrations. So we had our bonfire on Tuesday. So who's ready for summer? Time to get out of the house, see some friends, have a barbecue, go on a short trip. And maybe that feels a little early. We still have a bit more of the school year to finish out. In the US, our cultural summer typically starts on Memorial Day in about 3 weeks. But here at UUCDC and in most other UU congregations, we finish up our RE year and we shift to our summer schedule of one multi-generational service each Sunday, round about this time, round about Beltane. So today we thanked our RE teachers for sharing their time and talents with our children. Each year, the RE curriculum tends the seeds of our UU values of love, justice, equity, transcendence, plurality, interdependence, and generosity. And now as our kids move out into the summer, they take those values with them to their summer camps and their band practices and their sports practice. And that's great, but why does the schedule for the church change? I grew up UU, and I never really understood it. For folks who come to us from elsewhere, it's even more opaque, right? Most religious traditions keep their schedules pretty similar through the summer. Maybe the minister takes a short vacation, Sunday school winds down, but vacation Bible school scales up, and everything else pretty much stays the same. So I'd like to propose 2 reasons that UUs do it differently and that this really feeds into our unique religious tradition. Once upon a time, most Unitarian churches existed in and around Boston. American Unitarianism developed from the Congregationalist movement of independent, self-governed Protestant churches in the 17th and 18th century colonies. You know the Puritans? Yeah, those guys. So the Puritans wanted educated ministers, theologians that had truly studied the Bible, and so, and I quote, dreading to leave an illiterate ministry to the church, they founded Harvard University in 1636. The trouble with universities, though, is that people actually do then read the Bible. And by the early 1800s, Enlightenment ideals of reason, free will, and healthy skepticism of Calvinist predestination had spread through New England congregations and the ivy-covered walls of Harvard. In 1805, the college appointed Unitarian theologian Henry Ware as the influential Hollis Professor of Divinity, causing a huge fight with more conservative Calvinists. When the dust had settled, Harvard had a strong Unitarian flavor, and that expanded with the founding of Harvard Divinity School in 1811, the first non-denominational divinity school in the country. Which is interesting, but really who cares? This is supposed to be a service about summer. And you're getting a boring history lesson. So here's the thing. Because many of the Unitarian ministers at the time were also Harvard faculty, they ran their churches on the Harvard academic calendar. Classes and Sunday service started in September. It went through graduation in May. And then there was the summer that was off, which is great work if you can get it, right? You go to the Berkshires, watch the grass grow, chill out. Except that's not actually how it worked. This is what makes our summer schedule uniquely Unitarian, and now Unitarian Universalist. Because these were professors. They didn't go to the Berkshires and watch the grass grow. They did pulpit swaps. They went all around Boston and the greater Unitarian church communities, and they preached in each other's pulpits. Now that got interesting theological ideas out to the general congregation, but it also meant they got to talk to the other congregations and get new ideas. So by the time September started up, there had been this great sharing of ideas, and everybody was ready to come back and talk to their own congregation for 9 months. So Unitarians, and now UUs, have kept this tradition for over 200 years. Today it provides us a unique opportunity to live out our Unitarian Universalist value of plurality. If you've been at UU CDC in previous summers, you've seen that we have a variety of people lead Sunday worship. Some are guest ministers from other congregations. Some, like our speaker last week, Reverend Joan Sabatino from UU Justice PA, are leaders of social justice organizations that serve our congregation or our community. Some are congregation members, like me. In 2 weeks, for instance, the coming of age youth will be presenting about their personal spiritual journeys. This, for me, is a highlight of every church year because I'm inspired by the wisdom and perspective of our youth. They offer new insights and viewpoints, and they are the leaders of our future, so they give us a glimpse of what could be. Whatever Calvinist dogma the old Unitarians threw out, Unitarian Universalism still holds on to the idea that we are a priesthood of all believers. We need no special person ordained by God to speak from our pulpit. Instead, we are most enriched by hearing from each other. But you might say, and I am living proof, that we have guest speakers throughout our church year. Occasionally we have multi-generational sermons, or when our youth and our old worship together. So why do we change the rhythm in the summer? I believe that changing our summer schedule has even more ancient roots, ones that we tend to forget in the 21st century. Traditionally, most schools, whether the local elementary or Harvard Divinity School, ran fall through spring. Until very recently, families on farms needed all hands to work the fields in the summer. We have spring break because it was planting season. We have fall break and Thanksgiving because it was harvest. In the Gaelic-speaking lands of Scotland and Ireland and Wales, Beltane is celebrated on or around May 1st, and it marks the beginning of summer. At last, the grass grew green, in the high pastures, and the herds could go up into the mountains for summer grazing. True, the warmest days of summer came after the summer solstice in late June, just as it does here in Pennsylvania, but the rhythm of life was changing as the good weather allowed everyone to go out of doors. On Beltane, every family extinguished the home fire that they had kept burning all through the winter, and they scrubbed the old cinders out of their hearths. That night, young and old gathered for a great celebration. The community built 2 huge bonfires with a space between them, and the cattle and the sheep ran between the bonfires to be blessed with health and fertility by the smoke. When the fires burned down, courting couples jumped over the embers to bless their unions as well. As the evening drew to the close, each family took a burning coal home and carried it carefully to their hearth and placed it there and relit their family fire from the central bonfire of the community. As the community blessed animals and courting couples, they blessed each house, each family in the community from their shared sacred fire. So my family celebrates Beltane every year with our fire pit. We welcome the migrating birds who return to our yard from far away. As the school year winds down, we look forward to our summer plans. Most years, I get terrible spring fever in March and April. I am antsy, and I am grumpy, and I want to go somewhere. So for me, Beltane is the moment when things finally get going. Anthropologists say our bodies have changed very little in the last 300,000 years. We may light our nights with electricity and send text messages at the speed of thought, but the brains that do the thinking are the same as those that lived when we lived by the light of the sun and carried messages at the speed of our feet. Our bodies naturally slow down into contemplation in the dark of the winter and bound forward into action in the light of the summer. Longer May days, whether it's at Beltane or Memorial Day, mark the seasonal boundary between sitting and thinking and going outside and doing. With our single Sunday service and our children off from RE, we at UUCDC have the freedom to act our UU values with the energy of the summer sun. On June 1st, for instance, our members will march with our friends from Mainline UU in the Media Pride Parade. Join us as we answer and we celebrate the call to love with our LGBTQ siblings. On June 8th, you can stop by the Delco Renewable Energy and Environment Expo just over here in Rose Tree Park, where you can get ideas for how to live more sustainably and in harmony with the nature around us. UUCDC's Climate Action Team will be meeting later in the month, and I will leave it to Lisa Rosenberg. She'll be speaking in a few weeks to share more about that. She's the head of our Climate Action Team. 2 pages. All summer long, we can come together to write letters with our Social Justice Committee's Vote Forward campaign. Think about it, in an epidemic time of loneliness, think how wonderful it feels to get a handwritten letter in your mailbox. Working together with our beloved community of UUCDC, we can draw our fellow Pennsylvanians back into the beloved community of our shared democracy. And if you're looking for a summer field trip, join our members for a Citizens Advocacy Day in Harrisburg. We'll be talking to legislators about issues such as gun violence, environmental justice, and reproductive rights, bringing our UU values directly into the halls of government. And let's not forget, summer is about rest, relaxation. There is value to going on vacation, taking it slow, getting outside, reconnecting with the natural world. Time spent in nature, in art, with loved ones restores our spirits and reveals the sometimes hidden truth of our deep interdependence and interconnectedness. Simply being among our neighbors restores the bond of community that can feel so frayed. Love and compassion comes in quiet moments, giving us both the strength and the perspective to care for ourselves, our beloveds, and our wider hurting world. I have to admit that the hurting world weighs on my mind these days. I've rewritten this talk several times, trying to get the balance of both the light and active energy of Beltane and the summer with the darkness and grief and worry over the past 6 months of winter. Friends and family lost or gravely ill, political, social turmoil, protests on college campuses, war and civil unrest around the world that seems to have no hope of resolution. Even a brilliant, blooming spring that came 3 weeks too soon and left me thinking only, climate change. I wanted to preach a sermon about hope of summer, but there was a cold ball of winter in my heart. Sometimes writing and talking helps us process our feelings, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today, and it helped me. I began my story with history, both of our Unitarian forebearers who traded pulpits to gain new perspectives, and with our Celtic ancestors who lit bonfires to bless their individual hearts from a common flame. It reminds me that we humans have been through times of change, of loss, of war. We relight our hearths from our common Beltane flame, not always because we are filled with the joy and energy of summer, but because together in beloved community, we can find the strength to go forward into the summer anyway. May we have a bright and rejuvenating summer. Blessed be. And now, I saw some of you looking with great puzzlement at the candles that were handed out during Jeff's song, so let me give you a little background. We're going to do our final hymn, number 66, when the summer sun is shining, and then we are going to do a variation of our Beltane ritual and relight our personal chalices from our shared sacred chalice. So we'll sing, then Joe and I will light tapers and we'll bring them out to you guys. If you would pass the flame to each other. Remember, we do this at Christmas Eve, if you've been here. When you pass your flame, you who are getting the flame, hold your candle up with the paper part down low. They are flammable. Do not light yourself on fire. Your friend with the flame comes over at right angles and touches your wick, and then you come apart, okay? Do I have this right, Joe? Is this one? Awesome. Okay, but Leah reminds me, please, please do not light yourselves on fire. That would be too much sacred fire. All right.